Hey, what's going on? It's Dan again. So, again, it's been what, 3 weeks or so since I did a video, but I've got a ton done, especially these last 4 days. So I'll go over all that stuff. A lot of stuff done. So just real quick, I think I explained. I did front shock hoops now. I did them once, and they didn't turn out because I had somehow the axle moved on me, and it was no longer centered underneath the truck frame. And first time doing it, so I was trying to make it work and failed miserably on that. So I cut them off and then got a second set. The second set went on perfect. I mean, the angles were great. Everything looked awesome. But again, I was assuming it was going to be good to go, but I totally forgot or never crossed my mind to lower the body maybe and test fit stuff and maybe tack it up with the body down. So I don't know what I was thinking. It's been a crazy past few weeks, months. I mean, just so much stuff going on. When I get to the barn, I really try to get like 10 minutes at every minute, but this part I really failed at. So I cut the second set off and attempted my third set. So let me start showing you what's been going on here. All right, so here is the third and final attempt on shock hoops. This time I made sure to lower the body down. I made sure the body was centered on the body mount. Everything was square. I even bolted the front two and the last two bolts down just to make sure, okay? Because I was assuming that I just had the brake booster and master cylinder to really deal with. It never crossed my mind that the heater box blower motor was actually going to be anywhere close to being in my way. And believe it or not, that blower motor, when it's down, is really in the way of hoops. So anyway, the body was down, bolted down, centered, and then I started mocking everything up. It took a good couple hours just to kind of play around and get angles and figure this out. Basically, whatever was going to work over here wasn't going to work over here. Whatever worked over here wouldn't work on the driver's side. I mean, it was just really a mind F. So this is what I ended up coming up with. They are matched, obviously height, angles are the same. Only difference is on the driver's side, I have the rear cocked out just a little bit. That's just how it needed to be with where it was going to be at. It wanted to hit right at the flange where the bolt goes into the master to the booster. Well, that's a hydro boost, but I wanted, a decent amount of room too. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt it. The back is just kicked out a tad, but everything else is the same. Got my ride height, everything's set up. So on the front here, on the driver's side, I just went on top of the frame. And then with that slight kick out, I did end up using one of these TMR standoff brackets. It was definitely a lot easier just to cut this tube straight across rather than trying to cope it in two directions. The first two attempts I was using pieces of 1.5-inch quarter wall tube as my outriggers, and then trying to match all these angles, it wasn't very fun. So put those on there, and then I did some heavy duty gussets. That's about almost a 10-inch span welded to the tube and the frame. And then back here, since it's standing off the frame, got a nice large triangle gusset there. And believe it or not, those two gussets on those tubes are, I mean, they're solid. And then this side right here, they're on top of the frame in both directions. So it just, driver's side was just kicked out like 1.5 inches, but it didn't affect anything else. The goal is to still do a connecting bar hoop to hoop, but that'll be kind of like last. This right here is enough to support the weight and do what I'm doing until I am driving it. The other thing is I was trying to, I wanted my ride height set, and I think I showed another video. I cut 4 sticks of 1.5 by 1.5 square 3/16 wall tubes, and then I drilled out 1/2-inch holes, basically to simulate the ride height of the shocks front and rear. So I used those to, bolt in the bottom, and then if you snug that bolt up nice and tight, the tube will stay in place. So I had my angle. So I was able to keep the tube in place. They're at 7 degrees. Tighten that bolt down, the tube would not move. And then it made it a lot easier to try to line up the tube. And then I also had the shock mount brackets tight to that tube, so I could kind of flex those and they would stay. So with the simulated shock staying put and the shock mount staying put, it really made it easier to figure out the whole tube thing. So I definitely don't want to ever do that again, but it worked out. So since we're up here, the motor, my buddy Brad was over. While I was doing some work on the back of the frame, he went through, I had him put all new O-rings on my injectors, put the fuel rail on, and then got the upper intake installed. Just feels good to have a couple more parts put on this truck. That, and it's also easier to put it on now than to do it with the body on. I mean, it does fit. You just have to have the back bolt already in the intake before sliding it onto the motor. But that's a whole nother situation, no big deal. So the front of the truck, like I said, hoops are done, the shocks are set up, everything's great. I did do all the flexing. I mean, there's no binding, everything's great. The only other concern I had was I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough angle out of this tie rod end or that one at the pitman arm. I wasn't sure which one was going to maybe max out with the amount of droop that this truck has. So I drooped it out max and nothing seemed to bind. But then I put it back down, and then I undid this tie rod end, and at full droop, this would still go down another 1.5 to 2 inches. So I know I'm not stressing out those tie rods, so that's a huge plus. And then I pulled out the stock Super Duty axles. When I put the axle together initially, I just kept the stock axles and I put brand new U-joints, 1480 U-joints in them, spicers. And then it crossed my mind later on that East Coast Gear Supply sells basically stock replacement axles with 1550 joints and ears. So I went ahead and bought those. So I got 1550 joints axles now. And then I was able to put my TMR custom drive flanges in as well. So the axles are in, 1550 joints. The drive slugs are in. Hoops are done. Shocks are set up. The track bar and drag link, everything's flexes out perfect. And then I was a little bit concerned about exhaust running on the truck, so I pulled out the upper straight third link that I had a 2-inch quarter wall. Rough Stuff Specialties sells pre-bent tubes that they generally use for high clearance lower links, but you can use them for pretty much anything you want. So this gives me a ton more clearance under the truck, because the driver's side header, which isn't on right now, basically shoots straight down here and in between the back of the oil pan and the bell housing, and then goes over to the passenger side. So what I'm going to also probably do is the headers actually come out at 2.5 inches. I'm going to have these go down to 2-inch. So there'll be even more room. So I think I'm not going to have any issues now with getting the 2 inches from each header, come out, basically 2 tubes right in this area to a Y pipe. And then I'm going to do a Y pipe out to a flex, what do you call those things? One of those flex joints. Just to keep some stress out of the exhaust system with all the flexing and motor torquing. So 2-inch into a Y pipe, 2 in, 1 out to a flex pipe, and then probably just do 2.5 out to a muffler here, and then 2.5 out. And this is actually basically at full bump right now. I can come right from the muffler, swing it out a little bit, under this cross member, and up and out. It's going to work out great. So that's what I'm thinking anyway. I got an exhaust guy that I've used for a few years, and he makes quite a few things happen. I know I've already covered the cross member for the trans and the heavy duty one I made with the TMR Atlas mount on that. Now moving to the back here, it is at full bump. I did pull the rear links off, lower links off, and got those painted and made sure everything's got anti-seize in that. And then I was flexing out with the 16s in the back. And some of this stuff slightly changed from when it was originally set up with the Fox 2.5 air shocks. So I think in the video or two ago, I told you guys I had to cut these off and lower these down a tad to change with how these shocks are. In the lower axle shock mount I had way out here, but at full flex and droop, the tire would hit the shock. So I moved that out, and this is my first time testing it with the Fox shocks with all these new setups. And the shock on, so I had one tire completely bumped, compressed. I had the other side completely drooped. It's the best way to test everything. Well, anyway, if the coil was on the shock, it would have interfered with the frame by maybe a 1/4 inch. So I had to, and I know some people are going to be like, well, you kind of did this backwards anyway, which I kind of did. These mounts from TMR, and now Barnes 4-wheel drive makes them too, basically are made to be recessed into the frame so that doesn't happen. But because I switched shocks and plans kind of changed, what seemed to work initially ended up not working now. So early this morning I came out, and I don't know if you can tell, but I cut the frame out, and then I backed it with a 2x4 piece of square tubing and then welded it all in. So that gave me what is now, Frenched or countersunk, however you want to say it, on both sides. That shows the back kind of. So a little extra work, but I think on these Ford frames anyway, though, they're C channels. To recess or actually French these in how they're normally done on like a Toyota or a Jeep, they have square tubes frames. You basically would have just cut the damn frame off the Explorer to then bring that in. So that would have been kind of a trick anyway. So I think the way I did it ended up working out better and easier, even though it's not normally how it's done. But yeah, so both sides are Frenched. So I have plenty of clearance now for the coils at full bump, full droop. You know what I'm saying? Full flex is when that would only happen. And now the Bronco II fuel tank swap is 100% completed. I know I showed how that was going to work out. I added, I think it's about 3 inches of 1/8 inch plate that I bent on this one side to form and fit, welded it right to the skid plate. Tank skid on both sides. So that way it creates a basket. That's what's going to obviously keep the tank from moving side to side, and also offer some trail protection now too. So I cleaned up the skid plate. Everything has been coated with bed liner, and then all the contact points where the tank sits in the skid plate, I used high density rubber foam that the clearances were already pretty tight, so I knew once the foam was in, when the skid plate was tightened up, everything's like squished and tight. The tank is not moving. So there's foam everywhere the tank sits. There's foam inside the sides that I made. There's foam on the 2 main channels the tank sits on. And then you can see some of the foam here. Then back here, I just took like a L shape from a 2x2 square tube. So it's got like a groove that fits in this tank, kind of fingers it down, and then that's all covered in foam too. So the tank is complete. It is permanently mounted now, so I'm very happy. The rear body mounts, the other videos showed I just basically cut out the body mount sections from that stock Explorer cross member. Well, that's all been fully boxed, so the body mounts now are completely solid to the frame. So that's not going anywhere. This rear cross member was 100% 2x2 frame to frame. I took some 2x3 square tubing, or was it 2x4? I can't remember. Anyway, cut that to fit inside the C channel. Basically welded and filled the C channel to box that and prevent flexing. And then 2x2 is obviously welded to that. And then all this stuff's boxed together. So that is good. Very, very good. So everything is shaping up. There's not a ton left to do, just this and that. Basically the front axle, I just need to take all the links off, paint, and I believe I already put anti-seize in all those fittings, but I'll double check. So basically anti-seize, paint, and matching all the dimensions 100%. And then that'll be pretty much done. My next project is, or the next video anyway, I'm going to get my bump can set up. I have an idea what I'm going to do. Basically, I'm going to make some flat ledges off, or flat, what do you want to call it? The truss has an angle to it, so I'm just going to come up and make a nice square flat pad on both sides. And then I'm going to outrigg from here somehow the bump cans, and then my rear bumps will be in this location inside the frame rail. I still have one pair of bumps from my other setup. They're Fox 2-inch, 2.0, 2.5-inch travel. So I'm going to set up the rear bump cans and the front ones with these 2.5 stroke. And the front bumps will be on the outside of the frame. You know, somewhere in here, we'll figure this out. And then again, it'll be bumping off the truss on both sides. And then whatever space is left, I'll do limit straps. All right, so that's what's been going on, and that's what's been getting done. So sometimes it doesn't look like a lot, but trust me, it's a ton. It's a ton. The last month and a half or so, it was actually getting kind of frustrating for me. I just felt like, I mean, I was spending hours and hours and hours in the barn trying to get stuff done. It's just like I'm not accomplishing much. I'm not getting nothing done. Like the truck is just still sitting right here under the hoist, and it's just it gets kind of frustrating. But then when you start making progress again, it's like, okay, well, I wasn't doing that bad. Sometimes you just really gotta take a break and step back for a minute, because I think I mentioned before, I mean, you have a plan and an idea, and it doesn't always work, or it might only work sort of, and you got to make changes and adapt. So I never plan on doing hoops 3 times, but like I said, I make mistakes. I have no problem admitting it. I've learned a ton from the mistakes I've done. That's how you learn, right? I'm obviously not a professional, and I don't pretend to be. But what I've been able to accomplish is it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's like I never knew I would ever do this, you know, a few years ago. So I know I kind of started my channel and my videos a little bit late. Like back when I first got SARGE, the original, my Bronco II. Here's a picture of it actually. That's when I got it, I don't know, 7 years ago now. And if I knew now, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have never cut that truck up. I wish I would have kept that truck stock just as a little daily driver type deal. I mean, but that's how I learned. I never anticipated or knew how in depth I was going to get with all this stuff. I mean, with SARGE, the Bronco II, I mean, I went everything from 2-inch coil in the front, 2-inch block in the rear, and you know, what was the stock tires? 29s, and I went the 235, 75s, and I went the 31s, and I went the 33s, and I went the 35s, and I went the 37s, and then the lifts went from the 2-inch blocks and springs to the Duff TTB Stage 3 5.5-inch lift. Then it went to the body lift. Then I did the knuckle swaps. I did the 95, 97 D35 knuckle swaps, which gave you a little bit bigger and dual piston brake calipers. And then I pulled those off and did the full-size Bronco Dana 44 knuckle swap, which obviously gives you quarter-ton wheel bearings, and the wheel bearing space is a lot wider, and then it gives you, you know, a lot stronger lockout options. And then it's like, well, I want to do a V8 and everything else. So then I did the whole V8 swap, solid axle swap, and then I did a first gen front clip swap at the same time. And I did all that. All of this stuff I'm talking about, I did all this stuff in our house 2-car garage. And I didn't have a hoist and all these tools that I have now. So it's just crazy how things can just start from so small and get so big. I mean, here I am now with a whole new truck that was, again, a really clean 94 Explorer. But I had this goal and an idea, like, you know, I want to get into a longer wheelbase 4-door vehicle that I think is going to be more stable and safer off-road, and then have room for the wife and kids. And that's the way we can all go out and have fun together. And so that turned into a whole, like, you know, 1-ton, 4-link, 3-link. Basically, it's like, if I'm going to do it again, I want to do it as big as I probably ever could do it the first time. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so that's what's going on. In the background, the stock Explorer seats were dropped off about a month ago to a lady down by Brian Racy, who he's had a lot of his upholstery done. So I'm getting the Explorer seats, totally brand new covers, and she's gonna go through and add some stiffer foam to the bucket areas to be more like a, I don't know, more of a race style comfort, kind of holds you in the seat type deal. I got all my gauges coming from Speed Hut. I'm gonna do all the gauges in this truck are gonna be all Speed Hut custom gauge cluster. In SARGE, the Bronco II, I just basically swapped in a tack from a V8 F-150 that basically just snaps right into the Bronco II's gauge cluster. And then where the stock speedometer was, I took that out and then made a plastic bezel, and it had a 3 3/8 GPS speedometer from Speed Hut in there. But this time around, I'm going to have all matching gauges in the cluster. So those are coming. Not really. I'm not going to take it out of the box, but I ordered a full floor from Auto Custom Carpets, ACC. So I have a there it is, a full floor from the driver's feet all the way to the cargo area, vinyl. That way it'll be easy to clean up mud, dirt, water, sand, snow, whatever. So that's here. And then in these boxes here, I have brand new, what are they called? Diamond clear. They're OEM style headlights housings, but they're like the diamond clear headlight bezels, headlight lenses, and then all new orange running lights and parking lights, and black grille and black bezels for around the lights. So I'm gonna obviously I'm gonna keep my same theme as SARGE. This will be painted tan, but it's gonna be a little bit different tan than what SARGE was. There's a lot of the Toyota Tacomas, I think they have like this really nice tan, and then Jeep and Dodge have a really nice tan, and even GM has a tan now. So tan's in. So I'm gonna get a nice tan paint. Everything else will be blacked out and black accents. And then I do have a, not custom, but Rough Stuff sells, I had a coupon code, whatever else, but I bought one of their do-it-yourself custom rock slider kits. So I'm going to have full-length rock sliders to put on this truck. All right, well, I'm not going to get too much more and everything else. I'm kind of getting off track here. So that's what's been going on. That's what's been getting done, and that's what's coming. So things are looking good. I'm getting excited. I cannot wait to get this truck up and running. I just can't wait. So, all right, you guys, like it, subscribe it, comment. See you guys next time.